The wind screamed outside the small outpost as if the planet itself was angry. The rain fell in thick silver sheets, hitting the metal roof like 1,000 hammers. Inside, Ethan Hale, a young human engineer, was fighting with the power controls again. He had come to this lonely moon to fix signal towers for the galactic relay network, but now even his tools were shaking from the storm's force. The lights flickered once, twice, then went out completely. "Great," Ethan muttered, grabbing a flashlight. Another night with no power. He looked outside through the small window. The storm was unreal. Electric arcs ran across the dark clouds, turning the sky violet. This was not a normal thunderstorm. The locals called it a magnetic surge storm, a rare kind that could fry machines and disrupt gravity fields. Ethan sighed. "Guess it's just you and me, Silence," he said to himself, sitting down near the bed. He was alone on this outpost, miles away from the nearest station. The wind howled like a wild beast outside. Then through the noise he heard it, a soft knock. At first he thought it was debris, but then it came again, knock, knock. He frowned. "No way anyone's out there," he whispered. Still, curiosity got the better of him. He opened the metal door latch slightly and wind rushed in, cold and biting. For a second, lightning flashed and he saw something collapse at his doorstep. It was a person. No, not quite a person. She lay on the ground, covered in what looked like silver fabric, soaked and trembling. Her skin shimmered faintly under the stormlight, pale silver blue, glowing slightly as if she were made of living light. Her eyes were half open, showing a color Ethan had never seen before, soft gold with flickers of green. "Hey," he shouted over the storm, kneeling beside her. "Can you hear me?" No response. She was breathing weakly. Ethan didn't think twice. He pulled her inside, closed the door with effort, and dropped the heavy lock. The wind outside roared but couldn't get in now. He carried her, light as air, to his bed. The metallic fabric clung to her like a second skin, but it was clear she was freezing. Her skin felt cold, almost metallic but soft underneath. Ethan grabbed a thermal blanket and covered her quickly. He turned on a small portable heater, but it flickered uselessly. The storm had cut all main power lines. He rubbed his hands together, trying to think. Okay, you're freezing. Don't die on me now." Her lips moved slightly. A soft, broken voice came out, not fully human in tone. Energy? Low," she whispered. "Heat, need warmth." Ethan blinked. "You speak English?" The woman opened her glowing eyes again. Translator. "Damaged," she murmured. Limited words. He leaned closer. "Who are you?" She tried to sit up but fell back weakly. "Lyra. From Telren? Ship?" Crashed. Her voice trembled like wind over glass. "Storm. Drained. My cells." Ethan stared, trying to make sense of it. "Cells? You mean energy cells?" She shook her head slowly. "No, life cells. Body runs on bioelectric energy. Without warmth, She trailed off, her breathing slowing. Ethan realized then that this wasn't a normal visitor. She wasn't human. Her entire body seemed to hum faintly, a soft vibration under her skin. And whatever this storm was, it had nearly killed her. He looked around helplessly. "All right," he muttered. "No power, no heat. I can't let her freeze." He grabbed another blanket and threw it over her. Still, she kept shivering, her skin giving off faint sparks of static. Ethan felt panic rising in his chest. He didn't want to lose her, whatever she was. She looked so fragile, so out of place in this cold world. He crouched beside her again. "Hey, stay with me, Lyra, okay? You're safe." She opened her eyes slowly. The golden-green color brightened slightly as she looked at him. "Warmth, please," she whispered again. Ethan hesitated. "You mean heat, right? I can try to restart the heater." She shook her head faintly. "No, not machine. I need living warmth," he blinked. "You mean from a person?" Lyra nodded weakly, her voice almost gone. "Human energy. Close enough." For a few seconds, Ethan stood frozen. He didn't understand fully, but he saw the desperation in her eyes. It wasn't a strange request, it was survival. She wasn't asking for anything improper. She was asking to live. "Okay," he said softly. "Just don't die on me, all right?" He carefully sat on the edge of the bed, wrapping part of the blanket around both of them. The air between them was cold, filled with static, and he could hear the storm roaring like a monster outside. Lyra's body trembled under the blanket, but after a moment the shivering slowed. Ethan could feel a faint pulse, soft, electric, like touching the surface of a running machine. The warmth slowly returned to her. After several minutes, her breathing steadied. The glow of her skin softened to a calm silver tone. Ethan looked down at her, his heart still racing. Better? Her eyes opened halfway. Yes. Thank you, she whispered. Her tone soft and almost musical now. Human warmth. Works, he chuckled nervously. Guess I'm a portable heater now. Her lips curved slightly, almost like a smile. A kind one, she said weakly. They sat in silence for a while. The rain outside softened to a steady rhythm, and the occasional thunder still rolled in the distance. Ethan watched her carefully. Her face was calm now, but he could see how strange and beautiful her features were. The shape of her ears was slightly pointed, her cheekbones high and glowing faintly like moonlight. You said you're from Talren, he said after a while. Where is that? Lyra blinked slowly as if thinking. Far, another star cluster. We travel. Study new worlds, so you're some kind of explorer? Envoy, she said softly. We observe, learn your world. Fascinating, Ethan smiled. You picked a pretty bad day to visit. Storm. Unexpected, she whispered. We didn't predict this kind of energy field. It burns. Our ship. Her words were soft but carried weight. She had been alone out there in that deadly storm, hurt and cold, and somehow she made it to his door. He couldn't imagine what would have happened if he hadn't opened it. He leaned back against the wall, exhausted. Well, you made it through. You're safe now. We'll figure out what to do in the morning. Lyra's eyes half closed. Ethan, she murmured. He blinked. You know my name? Read it, she said softly, pointing weakly toward his jacket. The name tag on his chest plate shimmered faintly in the dim light. Oh, he said, smiling. Right. Forgot I was still wearing that. Lyra's lips curved slightly again. You risked life to help unknown being. That is rare. Ethan looked away, a little embarrassed. It's just what anyone would do. Not anyone, she whispered. Some would fear. You helped. He didn't know what to say. Her voice was gentle but full of meaning. For the first time since he arrived on this empty moon, Ethan didn't feel lonely. Minutes turned into hours. The storm continued outside, but inside the outpost there was peace. Lyra eventually fell asleep, her breathing soft and even. The faint silver glow of her skin gave the room a calm light. Ethan stayed awake a bit longer, just watching the quiet flicker of her glow. He didn't understand who she really was or why she was here, but he felt a strange connection forming, a sense that fate had dropped her into his world for a reason. He whispered quietly, You'll be okay, Lyra. Outside, the storm began to fade. The violent lightning became distant flashes and the wind turned into a tired sigh. The first sign of dawn shimmered through the clouds. Ethan finally closed his eyes, resting beside the mysterious being from another world. In the morning, nothing would ever be the same again. When Ethan woke up, sunlight was filtering through the window. The storm had passed. The outpost was quiet except for the soft hum of wind outside. For a moment, he didn't remember what had happened last night. Then he turned and saw her. Lyra was sitting at the edge of the bed, wrapped in the silver blanket. Her glowing skin was calmer now, no longer flickering like before. She looked peaceful, her long, silvery hair slightly tangled, but shining in the morning light. For a few seconds, Ethan just stared. The sight was unreal, like a dream that somehow became real. When Lyra noticed he was awake, she looked over with her golden green eyes and gave a faint smile. You live, she said softly. Ethan blinked. I think that's my line. You nearly froze to death last night. Lyra tilted her head, thinking. Death? I was close, she said slowly, her voice like music. But your warmth saved me. Ethan felt his face heat up. Yeah, about that. You said your body absorbs energy through warmth, right? She nodded, looking serious. My species, Talren, store life energy in cells. The storm drained mine. I needed living warmth to recharge. Ethan rubbed the back of his neck. Well, that explains why you crawled into my bed. Lyra blinked innocently. Crawled? He coughed. Never mind, just glad you're okay. Lyra looked around the small room. This place, very small, cold walls. You live alone? Yeah, Ethan said, standing up and stretching. This is a maintenance outpost. I'm here to repair the relay towers. Not much company besides the wind. Lyra watched him quietly, her glowing eyes studying his every move. Humans. Work far from home? Sometimes, he said with a tired smile. We go where the job needs us, even if it's on a rock like this one. She nodded thoughtfully. We do same. Explore worlds, but we go in groups, never alone. Guess I'm not that smart, Ethan said, half joking. Lyra's expression softened. Or maybe brave. Ethan met her eyes, surprised by the sincerity in her tone. The way she said brave made it sound like something sacred. After a moment, he broke the silence. So, your ship, is it nearby? Maybe we can find it. Lyra shook her head slowly. Destroyed. The storm burned its power core. My signal. Beacon may still work, but I cannot reach it until I recover more energy. Ethan frowned. Then we'll help you recover. Whatever it takes. Lyra gave a small nod, clearly moved by his determination. You would help? A stranger from another world? Of course, he said without hesitation. If you hadn't knocked, I'd still be here alone. Maybe this is fate's way of giving me a friend. Lyra looked at him for a long moment, her golden eyes shimmering softly. Friend, she repeated, as if testing the word. That is a good word. Ethan smiled. It is. The day passed slowly. Ethan spent the morning checking the outpost systems. Most of the external equipment had been damaged by the storm. Antennas were bent, solar panels cracked, and power lines half melted. Perfect, he muttered under his breath. Just what I needed. Lyra followed him outside, wrapped in a metallic shawl she'd made from her cloak. The sun reflected off her silver skin, giving her an almost glowing aura. She moved gracefully, even though her steps were still weak. This air, heavy, she said softly. Your world's gravity's stronger than Talron. Yeah, it takes time to get used to it, Ethan said, picking up a broken solar plate. Careful where you step. The ground's slippery. Lyra watched him work for a while, fascinated. Humans fix things with hands, she said. No machines to help? Well, not out here, he said with a shrug. It's just me, a few tools, and a lot of stubbornness. She tilted her head again, smiling faintly. I like your stubbornness. Ethan almost dropped his wrench. Thanks? Lyra didn't seem to notice his awkwardness. She was studying a panel with deep curiosity. You use solar energy. Simple but clever. Ethan chuckled. Simple's all I've got. Then, suddenly, Lyra's knees gave out slightly. Ethan caught her before she fell. Hey, you okay? He said, steadying her. She blinked, her glow dimming. Energy low again. The storm's field still around this area. It drains me faster than expected. Ethan frowned. Then we go back inside. You need rest. She hesitated. I do not wish to drain you too much. Don't worry about that. Ethan said firmly. You're not a burden. Lyra's expression softened again, and she let him help her inside. Back in the room, Lyra sat on the bed, looking exhausted. Ethan placed a cup of warm water beside her. She looked at it curiously. You heat this with fire? He laughed. No, just an old heat pack. Fire's a little too old school even for me. Lyra took a sip and smiled faintly. It tastes calm. Ethan sat nearby, leaning on the desk. So your body runs on energy. Is it like electricity? She thought for a moment. Close. It is a mix of light and life. We call it essence flow. When our energy fades, we feel cold, empty. Warmth helps restore it. Ethan nodded slowly. That's incredible. Lyra looked down at her hands. It can be dangerous too. If our energy falls too low, we dissolve into light and vanish. Ethan's eyes widened. You mean you die? She nodded softly. Yes. The storm almost took me last night. There was silence for a moment. Ethan looked at her with deep concern. Then I'm glad you made it here, he said quietly. Lyra looked up at him. I am too. Her tone was calm, but full of emotion. She had almost died out there, and now she sat here, alive because of him. Something unspoken filled the air between them, a quiet connection, like two souls who'd shared the same storm. Ethan tried to lighten the mood. So, do all Talren look like you? Lyra blinked. Like me? He laughed nervously. I mean, glowy and all. She tilted her head. Yes, we all have luminous skin. It reflects our energy level. When we are strong, we shine bright. When weak, we fade. That's actually kind of beautiful, Ethan said before he could stop himself. Lyra looked at him for a moment, her glow flickering slightly. You think light is beautiful? He nodded. Yeah. It reminds me of stars. Her voice turned soft. Where I come from, stars are sacred. We believe they are the first souls. Maybe that's why I feel safe near you. You carry warmth like a star. Ethan felt his chest tighten a little. He wasn't used to hearing things like that. Well, he said with a smile, guess that makes us both light keepers, huh? Lyra gave a small laugh, a gentle sound that filled the room. Light keepers. I like that. As night fell again, the storm clouds returned in the distance, though weaker now. The air outside buzzed faintly with leftover magnetic energy. Inside, the outpost lights flickered again, but the power held steady. Ethan checked the monitor screens. I think I can boost the power grid tomorrow, maybe get a message out. Lyra nodded slowly, sitting beside him. If you can reach my beacon, my people will find me. Then that's the plan, he said. We'll fix your beacon and get you home. Lyra looked at him, a strange expression in her glowing eyes. And what of you, Ethan? When your mission ends, what do you go home to? He paused. The question caught him off guard. Honestly, I don't know. I don't really have anyone waiting. Lyra tilted her head gently. Then maybe you need warmth too. Ethan smiled softly, looking at her. Maybe I do. They sat in silence for a moment, listening to the wind outside. It wasn't awkward. It was calm, peaceful, two different lives from two different worlds sharing one quiet night. Lyra finally said in a soft, almost whispering tone, When I first saw your world, I thought humans were simple. Now I see they are full of light too. Ethan chuckled quietly. Don't tell the rest of the galaxy that. They'll start expecting too much from us. Lyra smiled faintly, her eyes glowing warmly. I will keep your secret. As the room grew darker, the faint shimmer of Lyra's skin lit the walls like a soft lantern. Ethan leaned back, feeling a strange peace he hadn't felt in years. The storm outside began to fade again, and somewhere deep in his heart, Ethan knew this was just the beginning of something extraordinary. The next morning came quietly. A golden light slipped through the thin window blinds of the outpost. The storm had finally gone, leaving behind a calm sky and shining wet ground. The world outside looked clean, fresh, and silent. Ethan stood near the control panel, checking the system readings. He had been awake for hours, repairing what he could. The machines were finally responding again. The power lights blinked green for the first time in 2 days. He let out a long breath of relief. Finally, he said softly, maybe we can call for help now. Lyra was sitting nearby, her hands folded neatly in her lap. She looked stronger now. Her skin was brighter, her eyes glowing clearly again. The weakness she'd shown before had almost disappeared. There was grace in her every move, calm and controlled. When she noticed Ethan watching her, she smiled faintly. You fixed your world, she said. He laughed. Not my world, just this rusty station. Still, she said gently, you bring order to chaos. That is rare. Ethan sat down beside her. You sound like a philosopher. Lyra tilted her head slightly. Maybe my role is to learn. To observe, Ethan frowned. Observe what? Lyra didn't answer immediately. She looked out the window, at the sunlight reflecting off the wet sand and the cracked antennas. Humans, she said finally. Your ways, your choices, your emotions. Ethan looked confused. Wait, you came here to study humans? She nodded slowly. Yes, my people, the Talren, observe developing civilizations. We do not interfere, only learn. But your kind surprised us. How so? Lyra turned back toward him, her golden eyes steady. Your kind builds machines that break easily, but hearts that don't. You fight storms, fix things, and care for strangers. That is not something we expected to see. Ethan blinked. So, you're some kind of alien scientist? Lyra smiled faintly. In a way. I am an envoy. My mission was to understand what drives humans, their courage, their kindness, their warmth. The word warmth lingered in the air between them, and Ethan looked away, trying not to blush again. Well, you sure picked the wrong night to study us. That storm nearly fried you. Lyra nodded slowly. The storm was stronger than predicted. It damaged my ship's core and my translator. When I tried to send a signal, it backfired. The surge threw me from the craft. Ethan frowned. That explains why you showed up at my door. Yes, she said softly. I was weak, lost, and afraid. The energy storm attacked my cells. I thought I would dissolve into light before anyone found me. Her voice was calm but heavy with memory. Ethan could almost see it in his mind. Her ship breaking apart, lightning flashing across the sky, her body glowing dimly as she fell through the storm toward his outpost. He shook his head in disbelief. You were lucky. Lyra looked down at her hands. No, I was saved. Ethan didn't know what to say. He had never seen anyone speak with such quiet honesty. After a moment, she added softly, You did not fear me. That matters, he smiled slightly. You didn't look very scary, just shiny. Lyra blinked, trying to understand the humor, then gave a small laugh. Shiny, she repeated, amused. The laughter made the air lighter again. Ethan stood up and stretched. All right, let's see if we can get that beacon of yours working. Outside, the air was still and clear. The sun reflected off the wet surface, and the wreckage of the storm lay scattered around. Ethan carried a small toolkit, and Lyra followed closely behind. They reached the broken transmitter tower about half a kilometer from the outpost. The structure was bent but not beyond repair. Ethan started examining the wires while Lyra stood beside him, scanning the sky. This planet is strange, she said softly. It feels alive. Alive? Ethan asked, not looking up. Yes, she said. Your storms have energy I've never felt before. It's like the world breathes. Ethan smiled. Yeah, it breathes trouble. Lyra laughed again. You speak with humor even in danger, that is, human. Well, humor keeps us from losing our minds, Ethan said, especially when we're alone. She looked at him quietly. Were you lonely here? Ethan hesitated. Maybe a little. I didn't come for adventure, just work. Fix towers, send reports, and go home. Home? Lyra repeated softly. You miss it? He nodded, sometimes. But it's strange. Now that you're here, this place doesn't feel so empty anymore. Lyra looked down, her glowing skin faintly brighter for a moment. I feel the same. They worked together for hours. Ethan repaired the circuits while Lyra adjusted the energy lines with delicate movements of her glowing fingers. She seemed to sense energy flow without instruments. The more he watched her, the more fascinated he became. When the beacon finally powered on, a soft blue light pulsed at its center. The signal extended into the sky like a beam of hope. There, Ethan said proudly. It's alive again, Lyra smiled in relief. You did it. We did it, Ethan corrected. Lyra looked up at the sky where the signal disappeared into the clouds. My people will see it. They will come for me. There was joy in her voice, but also something else, a quiet sadness. Ethan noticed it immediately. You don't sound happy about going home. Lyra was silent for a moment. It is complicated. How so? She took a slow breath. I came to observe humanity, not to interfere. But I already did. Ethan frowned. By what, letting me help you? She turned toward him. By caring. That was not supposed to happen. Her eyes glowed brighter, full of emotion. You are the first human I have spoken to beyond study reports. And yet I feel... She paused, searching for words. Connected. Ethan felt his heart beat faster, though he didn't fully understand why. Connected? Lyra nodded slowly. You remind me that warmth is not just energy, it is emotion. It is kindness without expectation. Ethan smiled softly. We just call that being human. Lyra met his gaze. Then I envy you, the wind whispered softly around them. For a moment, neither spoke. The quiet between them said more than words could. When they returned to the outpost, the sun was setting again. The sky was orange and violet, and the twin moons were rising slowly above the horizon. Lyra sat by the window watching the sky. Her glow reflected softly on the glass. "Your world has beauty," she said. Ethan smiled. "It's not my world. Just a rented piece of rock. Still," she said, "it feels peaceful." He joined her at the window. "You know," he said thoughtfully, "I don't think I've ever talked this much in months." "You're good company." Lyra looked at him, her eyes warm. "And you're a good light." He laughed softly. "Light, you mean person?" "No," she said gently. "Light. You shine even when the storm tries to break you." Her words caught him off guard. No one had ever said something like that to him before. He didn't know how to respond, so he just smiled quietly. After a few minutes, the outpost monitor beeped. A new signal appeared on the screen, faint but clear. Lyra stood quickly. "That's them," she said softly. "My people." Ethan looked at the display. "They found your beacon fast." "Yes," she said, her tone calm but heavy. "They will arrive tomorrow morning." Ethan felt an unexpected tightness in his chest. Tomorrow. That meant she was leaving. Lyra seemed to sense his silence. She turned toward him, her expression soft. "You have given me something I did not expect, Ethan." "What's that?" She took a slow step closer. "Understanding. You showed me that kindness can exist without purpose. That warmth can come from the heart, not just from energy." Ethan felt his face flush. "You make it sound like I did something big. I just opened a door." "Sometimes," she said quietly, "opening a door is everything." They stood there for a long time, watching the sky. The stars appeared one by one, glowing softly through the thin atmosphere. Lyra lifted her hand toward them as if greeting old friends. "My people will come for me," she whispered, "but part of me will stay here." Ethan nodded slowly. "Then I'll make sure your part is safe." Lyra smiled faintly, and for the first time her glow brightened enough to light the whole room. Outside, the night was peaceful. No thunder, no wind, only silence and two souls from different worlds who somehow found each other through a storm. The storm had passed, leaving the sky clean and bright. The twin suns of the alien world rose slowly, painting the landscape in gold and soft orange light. The air was fresh and quiet, and for the first time in days, Ethan could hear the calm hum of insects and the whisper of wind through the metal framework of the outpost. Everything seemed peaceful again. Inside the shelter, Ethan was preparing his morning routine. He checked the power lines, cleaned the solar panels, and made a fresh pot of synthetic coffee. The warmth of the drink and the calm of the morning almost made him forget the strange and chaotic night before. But when he turned around, he saw Lyra standing by the window, her silver skin catching the sunlight. She looked different now, no longer weak or shivering. Her eyes glowed with a soft blue light, her posture tall and confident. The alien robe she wore had repaired itself overnight, its material flowing smoothly like living silk. Ethan could not help but stare for a moment, realizing she was not just some traveler. She carried an aura of authority and quiet power. Lyra turned and smiled when she saw him watching. "Good morning, Ethan," she said in her soft but steady voice. Her translator device now worked perfectly, her tone clear and almost musical. Ethan smiled awkwardly. "Morning. You look better, like the storm didn't even happen." "The storm helped me understand something," she replied. "About you, about humans." Ethan laughed lightly. "You mean that we're good at offering blankets and bad coffee?" Lyra tilted her head, curious. "No," she said. "That you help others even when you are afraid. You gave warmth to a creature you did not understand. You did not ask who I was. You only helped." Her words made him blush slightly. He tried to find something clever to say, but ended up mumbling, "Well, I couldn't just let someone freeze. I guess that's just what people do." Lyra looked thoughtful for a long time, then walked closer to him. "Not all species are like that," she said quietly. "Some see difference as danger. Some turn away. But you didn't." Ethan could see something in her expression, gratitude but also a kind of sadness. He wanted to ask what was bothering her, but before he could, a faint humming noise echoed from the sky above. Lyra looked up sharply. "They found me," she said. Ethan stepped outside. A sleek silver ship was descending through the clouds, its shape smooth and beautiful like flowing water. It hovered for a moment, then landed gently near the edge of the rocky plain. The wind from its engines kicked up dust around them. The ship's ramp lowered, and several alien figures stepped out, tall, graceful, and wearing glowing armor. One of them called out in Lyra's language, a series of musical tones that sounded like light chimes in the air. Lyra responded in kind, her voice carrying across the distance. The leader approached, a tall alien with dark blue markings on his face. He looked relieved when he saw Lyra unharmed. "Envoy Lyra," he said, his translator activating. "We received your distress beacon." "Are you unharmed?" Lyra nodded. "I am safe. This human helped me." She turned slightly toward Ethan. "Without him, I might not have survived the night." The alien officer looked at Ethan curiously, his glowing eyes scanning the human's simple clothes and worn-out boots. "A human?" he said, sounding surprised. "You made contact?" Lyra smiled faintly. "Yes, a very kind one." Ethan rubbed the back of his neck, feeling awkward under their gaze. I just did what anyone would do." "No big deal," the officer nodded slowly. "You have our gratitude, human. Few would offer aid during an electrical storm of that magnitude." Our envoy's ship was struck by the magnetic surge. Lyra turned back toward Ethan. Her expression softened again. "I must return with them," she said. "My mission is not finished, but—" She paused, searching for the right words. "I wanted to say goodbye properly." Ethan's smile faded a little. "I figured you'd have to go. You've got a whole galaxy to explore, right?" She stepped closer, the soft light from her body reflecting off his face. "Perhaps, but I will not forget this place, or what you did." From a small pocket in her robe, Lyra took out a crystal, a small glowing shard of blue light no bigger than Ethan's thumb. It pulsed gently, like a heartbeat. "This," she said, placing it in his hand, "is a bioenergy token. It contains part of my life essence. It is used among my people as a sign of deep trust and gratitude. If you ever activate it, I will know." Ethan held the crystal carefully, feeling a faint warmth in his palm. "I don't know what to say." "Then say nothing," Lyra said softly. "Just keep it safe," the alien officer called out again, reminding her it was time to leave. Lyra hesitated for a moment longer. Her glowing eyes met Ethan's, and she seemed to struggle with something unspoken. Then she said quietly, "There is one more thing you should know. My mission was to study human behavior, how your kind reacts in crisis. But last night was not just an experiment. It was real." Ethan blinked. "You mean?" She smiled, a gentle, genuine smile that reached her eyes. "I did not expect to feel warmth, not only in body but in heart. That was new to me." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The sunlight shimmered off the alien ship, and the wind carried a faint scent of ozone. It was a strange silence, full of meaning neither of them could quite describe. Finally, Lyra took a slow breath and turned toward her ship. As she walked up the ramp, one of her crew members asked in a quiet voice, "Did the human fulfill his part of the contact test?" Lyra stopped for just a second. The air shimmered faintly around her as her cheeks changed color, a soft pinkish glow that looked suspiciously like a blush. "Yes," she said, glancing back at Ethan with a faint smile. "He passed perfectly." The ship's engines came to life with a low hum and the ramp closed. The craft lifted off gracefully, rising into the bright sky. Ethan stood there watching as it disappeared into the blue, leaving only a faint trail of light behind. For a long time he didn't move. The wind tugged at his jacket and the quiet of the world settled around him again. He looked down at the glowing crystal in his hand. It pulsed gently, steady and warm, like a heartbeat that refused to fade. Ethan smiled softly. "Guess I made a friend out there," he murmured. He returned to his shelter and placed the crystal on the small table beside his communication console. Every time he glanced at it, the memory of that storm came back, the fear, the laughter, the awkward conversation, and the strange beauty who had crawled into his world and changed it forever. Weeks later, when the supply ship from Earth finally arrived, the pilot asked Ethan if anything unusual had happened during the storm. Ethan just smiled and said, "Nothing much. Just a visitor." The pilot laughed. "Out here? You're lucky if you see a bird." Ethan only nodded and looked out the window toward the stars. Somewhere out there, he knew Lyra was continuing her mission. Maybe she was studying new worlds or speaking before alien councils, but maybe, just maybe, she still thought of the small human who shared his warmth in a lonely storm. And as the twin suns set that evening, the crystal on his table glowed a little brighter for a moment, like a silent hello from across the galaxy. Ethan smiled again, feeling that same strange warmth in his chest. He didn't understand it fully, but he didn't need to. Some connections, he thought, didn't need words, some just needed kindness, a little courage, and the warmth of being human.